Hello and welcome to Office and Dragons Presents Conversations in Legal Tech, the podcast where we delve into the ideas, innovations, and game changing leaders propelling the legal profession into tomorrow. I'm your host, Sam Smolkin. As I'm sure everyone is aware, the legal industry is undergoing a period of very rapid and what feels like to a lot of people to be very seismic changes. I'm very lucky to have a veteran and leader in the legal profession with me here today. Eric Friedman is the former Chief Executive Officer at Skadden, one of the world's biggest and best law firms. And he's now been newly appointed as an advisor on Litera's board of directors. Today, we'll have an opportunity to dig into Eric's career in legal and law firm leadership and hear from him directly why he's now made his jump into advising technology companies and where he feels the future of legal is going and the role that tech has to play. Eric, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for the kind introduction, Sam. Really happy to be here and look forward to the conversation.
Likewise. So to kick us off, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your career journey, how you started out in practice, how you became the leader of one of the world's preeminent law firms, and why you're here now in the world of legal technology.
Great. Well, I started my career at Skadden, so I was a Skadden lifer until relatively recently. I spent 20 years as an M&A lawyer at Skadden, and then 15 years as a global chair and CEO. And more recently, over the last year, really have immersed myself in legal tech. I think there are common threads that run through all of that. It's clients as the North Star on transactions for M&A lawyers as a global manager of a professional services firm and in the legal tech space. We're really striving to get to what is the win-win for the lawyers, the law firm, and the clients. And I think that philosophy is really what drives the best of legal tech.
Amazing. And, as you take a look at the shifting landscape, as you consider how you were dealing with previous shifts, in your tenure as leader at Skadden, and what you're hearing from friends and colleagues who are leading across many of the world's preeminent firms, tell us a bit about, what you're seeing, what they're seeing in terms of market shifts, competitive dynamics, client expectations. How is that changing today? As we all know, in the advent of this legal AI revolution that we're living through.
I think the advent of hyper-relevant technology that can really enable lawyers to focus more on practicing law and less on the administrative side of the practice of law. It's just the most recent wave of tech innovation and disruption in the legal profession. I go back a long time, and so I remember when technology first came out to enable lawyers to compare documents. That was a game changer for a deal lawyer. And it sounds subtle, but actually enabled me and other junior attorneys at the time to really focus on what we wanted to be doing, which is practicing law, strategy, advising, untangling complicated legal issues. And over the arc of my career, we've seen numerous technology enhancements that have profoundly changed the life of lawyers. And think of e-discovery 15, 20 years ago. When that came in, it was viewed with some degree of skepticism. Now, it is part of the typical process for discovery document review and has enabled lawyers and law firms to focus more on the higher value work, less on the mundane work that lawyers didn't really love doing to begin with. So what I see in the current wave of technology innovation is more of that focus on let lawyers be lawyers and arm them with the best tools to enable them to be the most efficient lawyers with the right answers in the right place at the right time. And so I'm super excited about where this next wave of tech innovation is taking the practice, but it's not the first time that the practice of law has seen profound changes driven by technology.
Yeah, and it's really fascinating to get that historic perspective and put, this current period of change we're going through that, to everyone living through it feels all encompassing and possibly completely unique, but then to look at it into the context of the changes that have happened before. I guess, a big question on everyone's mind is, is this technology more of the same, or is it really going to be different in some way this time? And I think if you look at, the bigger kind of concept from the world of technology is whether a technology is disruptive or enabling towards an industry. So for the listeners, an enabling technology is one that allows industries to continue doing essentially what they're doing, but to do it faster, better, more efficiently. Whereas a disruptive technology is one that comes along and changes the way that things are done wholesale. So you can imagine, if we use the metaphor of an assembly line, the advent of better tooling for people to use on that assembly line, better, industrial practices, these can be seen as enabling. It allows the same number of people to produce, more automobiles, for example, in the same way. Whereas if you look at robotics, you can think of that as more of a disruptive technology that's really changing the way that things are manufactured altogether. Or, even going a step further to 3D printing, which is changing it even further. It sounds like, based on what you've said before, the technology that's shifts that have happened to date have maybe been more enabling. They've allowed lawyers to focus on doing the things they love, but ultimately to continue being lawyers, and for firms to operate the same way they've operated, but just to be bigger and better. But what do you think about the current technology? Is it enabling once again, or do you see the potential for it to actually be disruptive this time? And feel free to disagree with that entire sort of phrase.
Yeah, I probably would say it feels more like a combination of disruptive and enabling. And I think you could harken back to some of the technology innovations that have affected professional services, the legal profession, over the past couple of decades. They have profoundly changed the way people practice. In a sense, they've moved or shifted work towards tech away from lawyers, tended to be lower level work, but nonetheless, that shift was fairly profound. And yet I wouldn't count out big law, because if you look at what's happened, despite technology innovation and a degree of disruption over the past 2 decades, law firms have had consistently more profitable years, year in and year out, overlaying that with the global financial crisis, the COVID pandemic, recent geopolitical disruptions. And so it's underscored the strength of the legal profession to be able to embrace technology and yield efficiency for a client and yet continue to drive profitability has surprised so many. And I think it would be unwise to count out the legal profession and the structures of law firms. I do think that Gen AI and artificial intelligence more generally is creating opportunities for even more substantive work to be shifted to tech solutions. And really, the future, from my perspective, looks more like tech-enabled lawyers delivering the right results in a hyper-efficient way on behalf of clients. Again, clients as the North Star driving that innovation.
And what kind of pressures do you see this putting on law firm leaders, in big law or otherwise? And what do you see as the right way to respond to these challenges? What should leaders be doing now in the face of this shifting landscape?
I think um, if you assume that the legal pie is relatively static over the coming years, then it's going to heighten competition to win more matters and underscore the importance for firms to be positioned as thought leaders for their lawyers and more senior attorneys to be out there engaging with clients, winning more business to backfill the shift of hours that are going to be handed off to tech solutions, undoubtedly.
That's really interesting. And on the topic of hours, do you think, law firm leaders should be trying to hold on to hours as long as they can? Or do you think they should sort of emphatically be letting go of hours spent on tasks that technology could automate and focus on winning more of those high value advisory kind of deep expertise hours, and just sort of embrace that shift?
I think the winning firms are going to have to embrace that shift, full stop. And I think that frequently tech is divided between the practice of law tools and the business of law tools, tools that help law firms operate and tools that help lawyers lawyer. I think the middle between them, business intelligence and relationship mining and opportunity identification, is where a lot of the action is going to be, because it's going to drive the firms that embrace technology to strive to be winning more business, to backfill hours, and to not use technology as a way to completely reshape their firm and the way that they practice, but to use it as an advantage to be able to win more business.
As a law firm leader, right? You're not a data scientist. You're not a software engineer. You know a good deal about the area of law that you practiced, as you're likely a lawyer yourself, and you know about serving clients. You know about growing a professional services business, perhaps in that role. But who should people be going to for help on that technology piece? Who should law firm leaders be partnering with? How should they be partnering with them in order to, execute on that vision? I mean, it could be great to say, like, yes, I have a vision of using technology to shift the way we work, to win more work, to automate the low value stuff and become the leader, in our segment. But who do you go to for help? Who's going to help you do that?
I think the most effective tools and approach to legal tech will be a combination between incredible ideas and technologists, investment capital to develop the idea into a solution, and industry domain expertise. You need all three to be able to really combat what has been historically a very difficult adoption cycle, getting lawyers to change the way that they do business. So you really need those three pillars to be able to come up with the best solutions that you can then convince lawyers will advantage the way that they practice. And so in that realm, I think companies like Litera, which is a true tech platform that is providing the practice of law solutions, drafting solutions, transactions solutions. It is providing the business of law solutions, pricing and time estimating solutions, and that business intelligence middle ground with CRM and proactive relationship management tools and the like. I think that's where you can find trusted partners to bring to the table to really work with law firms to develop, not only to incorporate their technology, to develop the next wave of technology. I personally believe we're at the early innings still of legal tech. And despite having amazing solutions already available, that it's still early. It's early in the adoption cycle. It's too early to declare winners and losers for any one tech solution. And so platforms like Litera can be trusted partners for their clients in developing what the next wave of technology will look like. Sam, if I can, I'd love to turn the table, because we are touching on something that really you're the expert on. I think from my perspective, you are that prime example of a domain expert, transactional lawyer who saw an opportunity, a need, who went out and developed the technology and has deployed that technology. Could we talk for a moment about Office and Dragons? Tell the group, what does it do? What's it all about? Where did it come from? What was the impetus for the idea? Because I think it's a great example of those three pillars coming together.
Definitely. Really, really happy to share that. So as you said, I used to be a private equity lawyer at Kirkland & Ellis, working on M&A deals for, some of the world's biggest and best funds with some of the world's best people, even though they weren't at Skadden. And, what I found in the time that I practiced is that while I really loved many aspects of my role, talking about what lawyers want to do, I love being an advisor. I loved when I got to call the client on the phone and talk them through like an issue in the documents or how we're going to negotiate. But I was really frustrated with the less glamorous parts of my job, which were basically a lot of paper pushing. This was true even back in 2019, when I left Kirkland. I think it's only gotten more so. But you could see that the way deals and all sorts of transactions were getting done was becoming faster, more complex all the time. And that also meant a lot more document heavy. Whereas the tools that I had available to me to go through that were blood, sweat, and tears, I guess, and nothing else, right? It was going through all these documents one at a time, changing the closing date across 50 documents when the deal pushed, or updating the enterprise value, or trying to check through a big cap table from our clients and make sure that all the numbers were reflected correctly across all the docs, because if they're not, and you close on bad numbers,
bad things happen.
Yeah, bad things happen. So Office and Dragons is an idea that came to me, in the midst of those late nights, copy pasting across a bunch of documents, doing battle with mail merges to dupe out equity interests across 50 managers and so on. I wanted there to be some kind of technology that would eliminate the most tedious, repetitive, and mechanical parts of my work. But talking about adoption, what was really key to me from the beginning was that I wanted there to be something that was so simple and easy to use that even my most tech-phobic colleagues, and I had specific people in mind, would be willing to pick it up, and it would make their life easier from the first time they used it, not, a year in to trying to work it out. And at the time, and still, there really isn't anything else like it in, legal technology, something that will take whatever documents you're working on, allow you to put them in, and just right away eliminate all that error-prone, repetitive, tedious work without having to spend a bunch of time coding stuff up, building templates that you have to stick to methodically. Because, I think to your point, as the portion of work that lawyers do gets more complex, where cookie cutter solutions aren't going to cut it, you're going to need something that can handle the shifting and evolving demands of legal work. So that was the impetus for Office and Dragons. And today, we built a platform that is used across, some of the world's biggest and best firms, folks like Clifford Chance and Decker and many others, which I'm very proud of.
As you should be. You said something in there about error prone, so manual, right? With attorneys doing work, there's some notion of, well, technology is not always 100% accurate. And I think your experience is same with human lawyer time, particularly at 3 a.m, 3 days going. How does Office and Dragons approach accuracy to assure it is 100% accurate rather than you wake up post-signing and find out that there's a mistake?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think it's really important, when thinking through this, just like you were talking earlier about how to pick the right solutions for practice, to think about what different technologies are involved and where people are involved and what each is best at. So generative AI is on everyone's mind, and everyone knows the big problem of Gen AI is hallucination and inaccuracy. You ask Gen AI to do something 100 times, it's not going to do it the same way. Each time is going to be slightly different. Meanwhile, there's other technologies like robotic automation, which are not very creative. They're not going to get creative about how to draft your document, but you tell it what to do, and it'll do exactly that 100% of the time, every time. And then there's also us, the lawyers, the people who can understand, is what AI is telling me to do right or not, or at least we've got to develop the skills to understand that. So in Office and Dragons, for example, we leverage all three of those things: generative AI, robotic automation, and people, who are very central and key. So the loop in Office and Dragons is you put in the documents you want to make changes, you tell the AI what you want to do, and the AI makes suggestions. Now, before those suggestions are applied, they're presented to you, the lawyer, in a nice clean list. You can see exactly how they're going to affect your documents, and you can go through and say, I want to do that, I don't, I want to modify it. But then when you're ready to create your documents, that's when you hand over to the robot. That's when you've got your instructions suggested by AI, reviewed and approved by the lawyer, that are now going to be carried out consistently, across 50, 100, however many docs you're putting through.
Right. That seems to me the epitome of the augmented lawyer practicing law with technology. And that is why tools like Office and Dragons are so good, because they make lawyers better, more efficient, more accurate. And at the same time, they are letting lawyers spend more of their time lawyering and giving clients the benefit of the accuracy and efficiency. I think it's a really good example in the what is the art of the possible. This is already in front of us as an existing tool that can save countless hours, benefit the client, and benefit the lawyers who don't really want the drudgery of going through those documents, nor the pressure of catching every place they needed to.
Definitely. One of our earliest investors, a partner at K&E, once told me, it's not that, junior associates should necessarily work less, but if they're going to be working late on my deals, I'd rather them review the warranties one more time for substance than spend, the whole night copy pasting the same thing across 50 docs.
I think that's really well said.
Amazing. Well, Eric, thank you so much for joining today and sharing your thoughts. I thought this was a fascinating conversation and such a unique opportunity to learn, from someone who's been at the forefront of leading the industry for so many years. It's really interesting to hear that, despite the hype, and I think for a lot of people, a lot of fear, your view that this is not something that's going to replace lawyers. Lawyers are here to stay, and that this technology is going to augment lawyers. And also, crucially, that we're still early. It's clear, from speaking with you, and I think in the wider industry, that this technology is going to bring about shifts. There are going to be winners and there are going to be losers on the other end of this. but it's still early. There's still plenty of time to embrace the change, find the right partners, whether that's Litera, whether that's tools like Office and Dragons, or, the whole host of others out there in the ecosystem that are going to help you on that journey. And it's possible to leverage this as a unique opportunity to grow that market share, deepen relationship with clients, bring on lots more clients, and come out on the other side bigger and better than ever before, just like other tech has done for, the leading law firms. So Eric, where can people go to find you if they want to learn more from you?
Yep. Find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest place. And I look forward to continuing, Sam, the conversation. I think it's really important and super interesting for me to have someone like you who's really been on the forefront of both the practice, the innovation, and now the deployment of legal tech.
Amazing. Likewise, I look forward to continuing the conversation with you and with anyone listening. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. And if you want to learn more about Office and Dragons, you can go to officeanddragons.com, and Litera is at litera.com. You can find both company pages on LinkedIn too, and probably wherever else you look to connect with companies and people. Thanks so much, everyone, for
Thank you.
to listen today.